So the second part of the shadow that I'd like you to think about, now that we kind of have a base level, like you can tell where the light source is coming from, is the second one is the cast shadow. So the cast shadow is going to be the darkest part of your drawing. And the cast shadow, and this is just especially noticeable on this drawing because it's dramatically lit with a spotlight. The cast shadow is where the body is blocking the light completely. Like this muscle that attaches to the, the top of the skull to hold it in place is really nice and dark right here. So I'm going to get and shade that area so you have a really nice dark spot. And the pectoral muscle is actually casting a shadow as well, a little lightly, but and I'm kind of trying to follow where all the sort of fibers of the pectoral muscle attach to the sternum. It gets a little darker in here. There's a really nice dark spot here. But always, don't, you can always go darker, and it's harder to sort of pick up the graphite or the charcoal or Conte than it is to lay it down and not go too hard. So on the entire, this part here is a nice dark area. Since it's being lit from one side, you're getting cast shadow across the whole right side of the body here. And especially there's this really nice dark spot under the right arm. And why I like working this way is you kind of lay the groundwork with the form shadow, and then the cast shadow, when you get gradually darker, it really kind of integrates itself nicely into the rest of the form. And the pectoral muscle, it also has a really nice spot here that gets super dark. And I'm trying to, like I was saying, like wood grain, is I'm trying to follow the musculature. And, oddly, like musculature is kind of like wood grain in the sense that the fibers have directional, like they have direction to them actually. And then with the head and the face, you're going to want to go much slower because of the detail gets smaller, but the cast shadows are working there as well. And especially in the side of this leg gets nice and dark, and I'm following the edge of it. And I've been using, basically the shading so far has only been using 2 pencils, just the HB and the 2B. So it's starting to get a pretty good sense of volume to it. So that's what you want to start looking for in blocking this in, and then you'll spend a lot of time getting into the nuances of where it follows the edges of the muscles and bone. It gets especially interesting in the knee when you spend some time in it. And I'll put up some anatomical images with them of the under the skin, the bone and muscle, because it becomes, once you kind of pull the skin away, it becomes very clear all this detail that's happening here, the interaction of the sinews and bones. So the second and last part I just wanted to mention was the light part. So the light part of the body we covered. This is the dark part, essentially made of just 2 parts, the form shadow and the cast shadow. So the light part is, we talk about the halftones. It's called several things, but we'll say the halftones is essentially, it's the light part of the body is the halftones and the highlights. So he's being lit with a spotlight. So you can see these really nice highlights, but they're isolated, like here, this side of the legs, the side of the cheek, but the rest of it is, you call a halftone. And that's like the average tone that's in the light. So it's still part of the light family, but it's really important because it defines the highlights. So you want to kind of work up to the edge. Like I'm using a 2H pencil. You can experiment with the reason the 2H I like is because it's a very light tone, even though it's a little bit of a sharper pencil. But the idea is you kind of, and this takes, slowly working into it, but lightly, just very lightly toning the paper next to the highlight and sort of pulling it into the cast and form shadows that you've made so that you push out the highlight. So that will probably take the most time and sort of attention and slow work because it really, it will give you the really nice results because you're kind of really finding a way to push those highlights forward. Like here, there's a really strong highlight present. And, practice with the best grip. But all of these, I highly recommend the overhand grip because like I was saying, it exposes more of the side of the pencil. And, depending on your feel for it, you can work so it's very soft tone, or you can give sort of direction to it. But this is all still part of the light is part of the light side of the drawing that I'm toning in here. So it's probably difficult to see, sorry, on the computer screen, but I'm just kind of lightly working over it. I'll make it a little darker so that you can see, but I do recommend a 2H is a nice pencil for the halftones of the light side of the figure because it will only ever get so dark. So you can't, it's hard to kind of overdo it. And you can do it so that you leave, if you want directional marks, that's up to your personal, aesthetic. And also the nice thing about the 2H pencil is you can go over the areas you've already done with the softer B pencils and kind of, it almost works in a weird way like a blending stump and kind of unifies the tones, and you can kind of push up to the edge of it. So experiment with which way works best for you. But in essence, that's sort of what I'd suggest with with how you go about the shading. And then of course, where needed, draw back in with the eraser. But that would be a good start. And I'd also recommend having, if you have just a clean chip brush or even a small brush around that's clean, just to whisk away your erasures, because my oily hands are always smearing graphite and charcoal around. So do you guys have any questions about that, or you guys can always email me. But that's really all I had for you guys today. I just wanted to kind of get this project started. You guys will be off next week, so this won't be due till we come back. And what I'll do is, like I've been doing, is I'll upload a high resolution image that you guys have been working from and some anatomical references and other suggestions. And I'll get that up sometime this afternoon, and then it'll be when we come back from break, you guys can turn it in.